Welcome to Tales of the Bard. Step into a world where stories come alive and imagination knows no bounds. Join me as I weave enchanting tales reminiscent of the bards of old, sharing legends, myths, and original stories that will transport you to distant lands and forgotten times. Jonty didn't waste time after his encounter with Skryla. The moment he reached the edge of the Druid Grove, he hurried toward Ronan's camp, knowing the Druid needed to hear the latest developments before the situation escalated. It wasn't just the thieves' plot that had Jonty worried. It was how easily Skryla had seemed to slip into the Blue Tree network, almost merging with the magic itself. And the cat, he still wasn't entirely sure what he had witnessed. But if anyone would understand, it was Ronan. The night air was cool as Jonty made his way toward the small clearing where Ronan had been preparing for the next phase of their defense against the Hagborn. He found the Druid standing near a circle of trees, his hand resting on the bark of a massive blue tree, his eyes closed in silent communion with the network. Ronan was more connected to the trees than anyone else in the realm, and Jonty often marveled at how naturally he moved through this world of magic and nature. As Jonty approached, Ronan opened his eyes, sensing his presence before he even spoke. "Jonty," Ronan greeted him calmly, but there was an underlying tension in his voice. "You have news?" Jonty nodded, catching his breath. "Yes, but it's more than just news. I came across a group of thieves in the tavern. They're planning something big, targeting the town and possibly more, but that's not the strange part." He paused, trying to find the right words. "I met with Skryla to get the message out quickly. She was in her elven form, but there was something different this time." Ronan's brow furrowed, his expression serious. "Different how?" Jonty shifted uneasily. "She seemed to, well, I think she may have become one with the blue tree. She stepped behind it, and it was like she merged with the bark. Then a cat appeared out of nowhere, and it seemed like she was talking to it. The whole thing felt unnatural, even for her." Ronan's eyes darkened, and he moved closer, gripping his druid staff tightly. "Skryla has always had a deep connection to the blue trees, but if she's merging with them in ways even I don't understand, that's something we need to take seriously. She's always had powerful magic, but the lines between her and the natural world are growing thinner." Jonty could see the concern in Ronan's face. Skryla had been an ally for as long as either of them could remember, but her powers were ancient, drawn from the same forces that governed the Druid network itself. If she was evolving, or changing in some way, it could mean unforeseen consequences for the balance of magic in the kingdom. "Do you trust her?" Jonty asked, his voice lower now, his usual bravado gone in the face of something greater than mere thieves. Ronan took a deep breath, his eyes distant as he considered the question. "I trust her loyalty to the land. She's protected the kingdom for longer than either of us has been alive. But magic like hers, it doesn't come without a cost. The deeper her connection to the blue trees, the more she becomes part of them. If Skryla is blending with the magic of the land, it means her power is growing, but it could also mean she's losing something of herself." Jonty frowned. "And what about the cat? It felt like more than just an animal." Ronan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Familiars and animal messengers are common in druidic magic, but Skryla's magic goes beyond the ordinary. The cat may be a part of her essence, or it could be a manifestation of the Blue Tree network itself. Either way, it means that Skryla is reaching deeper into the network's power than ever before. I've sensed strange things happening within the trees lately, whispers I can't fully understand." He paused, his voice more serious now. "I'll need to investigate further. The trees are ancient, and their magic is more complex than any of us can comprehend. But if Skryla is somehow becoming more intertwined with the network, it could mean she's taking on more power and more risk than she realizes." Jonty, who had seen much during his travels as a bard and spy, couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. Skryla's growing powers were a double-edged sword. While she remained their ally, the transformation she was undergoing could have unintended consequences for the entire realm. "I hope it doesn't come to that," Jonty said quietly, his usual light-hearted tone gone. Ronan placed a hand on Jonty's shoulder, offering a small but reassuring smile. "We'll keep a close watch on her. For now, we have other matters to attend to. The thieves you mentioned, they can't be allowed to disrupt the kingdom. I'll need you to keep gathering information discreetly. Skryla's already sent word to the king, but we'll need more than just warnings. We need to be prepared for every threat, whether it comes from men or magic." Jonty nodded, his thoughts still lingering on the strange encounter with Skryla. "I'll do what I do best," he said, forcing a grin. "But keep an eye on those trees. I have a feeling we're not seeing the full picture yet." Ronan nodded solemnly, then turned back to the blue tree, his hand once again resting on its bark. The magic in the air grew still, and for a moment Jonty swore he could hear the faint whisper of voices carried on the wind, voices that seemed to come from deep within the tree itself. As Jonty left the clearing, heading back toward the town, he couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play. Skryla's powers were growing, but whether that was a boon or a danger remained to be seen. And with enemies lurking in the shadows, both human and magical, the days ahead promised to be more perilous than ever before. For now, all they could do was wait and prepare for whatever storm was coming. Jonty headed back to his room at the back of the inn. This arrangement suited him and the owner, Vachi Vorster, well. Free lodging for Jonty and a bard every night in the tavern to keep the patrons coming. He felt a sense of dread, almost as if someone or something was watching him. He was particularly worried about one member of the Thieves Guild who refused to drink. She never said a word. She just watched him. He heard some cats running on the rooftops. They seemed to be chasing something. Probably a mouse, he thought to himself. As he approached the steps to his room, he spotted the big black cat that Skryla spoke to. She called the cat Shadow. Shadow seemed to be guarding the stairs. Strange cat. A sharp scream pierced the silence, echoing from within the room and sending a chill down Jonty's spine. His pulse quickened, and he steadied himself, gripping his sword tighter. Shadow let out a deep, rumbling growl, fur standing on end. Jonty knew something was terribly wrong. He slowly climbed the stairs and pushed open the door, his eyes adjusting to the dim light within. A figure moved in the shadows, Maelis Whisper Aranth, the Thieves Guild's silent assassin, the one member who refused to drink the free beer. She stood poised in the darkness, her dagger glinting, eyes locked on Jonty. She had been sent to deal with him, to end his investigation before it could unravel the Guild's plans. But before either could make a move, another blood-curdling scream erupted from Maelis. Jonty's eyes widened in shock as a massive figure crawled out from the shadows, a huge spider, its legs tapping ominously across the floor. It was no ordinary creature. As it moved into the light, Jonty recognized the unmistakable glint in its many eyes. This was Skryla, having taken her terrifying spider form. Skryla hissed, her venomous fangs dripping, her many legs moving with deadly precision as she positioned herself between Jonty and Maelis. The assassin, normally calm and composed, faltered. Her dagger wavered in her hand as she took a step back, eyes darting between Jonty and the monstrous form of Skryla. Skryla's hulking spider form towered over the room. Her venomous jaws clacked, warning Maelis to leave. Shadow, the black cat, now emboldened, stepped forward with a low growl, pacing just behind Jonty, ready to strike. Jonty, his mind racing, nodded slightly toward Skryla, realizing that she had saved him from what could have been a fatal encounter. He raised his sword, signaling that he was prepared for whatever came next. The battle for his life and perhaps the fate of the entire investigation was about to begin. Jonty's muscles tensed, his instincts honed from years of service as a spy in the king's employ. He had been in dangerous situations before, but Maelis was no ordinary opponent. He knew from the deadly glint in her eyes that her blade was likely poisoned. Just one small scratch could mean death. His heart raced, but his mind was focused. Every movement from here on would have to be precise and calculated if he was to survive. Maelis, agile as a viper, circled him slowly, her dagger poised to strike. Jonty's sword gleamed in the dim light, his body shifting to block and counter any attack. The silence between them crackled with tension, both combatants waiting for the perfect moment to make their move. But before Maelis could lunge, a sudden hiss filled the room, followed by the sound of something sharp slicing through the air. Out of nowhere, Skryla's massive form moved with surprising speed. With a sharp flick of her legs, she cast a net of shimmering spider silk that shot through the air. Maelis's eyes widened in shock, but it was too late. The assassin found herself tangled in the web, her limbs ensnared in the sticky, unbreakable strands. She struggled, her dagger slashing through the air, but the silk held firm, tightening around her with every movement. Jonty stepped back, his breath finally easing. He watched as Skryla hissed, her fangs hovering near Maelis, a clear warning. For the moment, the danger was neutralized, and Jonty silently thanked Skryla for intervening just in time. Jonty stepped forward, eyes cold and calculated, as he bent down to pick up the poisoned blade that had fallen from Maelis's hand. The dagger was slick and sharp, still carrying the glisten of deadly poison. With swift precision, Jonty held the blade to Maelis's neck, his voice a low, threatening whisper. "Talk or die," he hissed. Maelis, tangled in the web and seeing no way out, felt the cold steel against her skin. She knew she had no choice. With a defeated sigh, she began to speak. "The Guild, it's bigger than you think," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You'll never stop us, because one of your king's most trusted advisors leads us." Jonty's eyes narrowed, the words sinking in. He listened as Maelis unraveled the dark truth behind the Thieves Guild. The network had infiltrated the highest levels of power, with their leader secretly feeding on privileged information about valuable cargo. It was all coming from the king's own court, under the guise of loyalty. "That's how we know everything," she admitted, her voice thick with resentment. "The shipments, the guards, the schedules, it's all been passed directly to us from inside the castle." Jonty's grip on the blade tightened. He had suspected corruption, but the depth of the betrayal shook him to his core. The man responsible for protecting the kingdom was the very one undermining it from within. Jonty glanced at Skryla, still in her spider form, and gave a curt nod. "Please inform Ronan," he said calmly. "I need to go see the king." His gaze shifted to Maelis, still trapped in the web. "And since I'm heading to the castle, she'll be coming with me. She'll get to know the rats in the dungeon." Jonty grabbed Maelis and picked her up, swinging her over his shoulder. Shadow, the black cat, growled menacingly at Maelis, making sure she understood not to even think about escaping. As they descended the stairs, a ginger cat appeared, walking beside Shadow in a silent show of alliance. Jonty smirked. A cat escort. That's one for his bard stories. Halfway to the castle, Jonty heard a faint whooshing sound from above. He looked up to see Ronan gliding in on his majestic Windstrider, its sleek body cutting through the air with ease. The creature landed gracefully beside them, and Ronan quickly dismounted. "Wait," Ronan said urgently, his eyes on Maelis. "We can use her. She must send a message to the Thieves Guild, one that says she succeeded in killing you. Then we watch who reacts and what they do. It'll flush out the traitors." Jonty paused, considering Ronan's plan. It was clever but risky. Still, he knew Ronan had a point. The only way to smoke out the true leader was to play along. He tightened his grip on Maelis's arm. "All right," he agreed, "but we need to make it convincing." Maelis, still bound and wary, knew she had no choice but to comply. Lord Calder Vane hails from one of the wealthiest and most powerful families in the kingdom. The Vanes have held influence for generations, known for their wealth and cunning in both business and politics. Calder, the eldest son, was groomed to be a trusted advisor to the king. Intelligent, charismatic, and seemingly loyal, Calder worked his way up, earning the king's utmost trust over the years. However, beneath his polished exterior, Calder harbored ambitions far greater than political advising. He sought power and wealth beyond the kingdom's limits. Over time, he secretly built up the Thieves Guild, carefully orchestrating its operations. He used his access to the royal court to funnel privileged information to the guild, ensuring their success in raids and heists. His role as a respected advisor allowed him to play both sides, manipulating the kingdom's enemies and its allies to his advantage. Though Calder publicly supports the king, his true allegiance lies with his criminal empire, which he sees as the path to ultimate power. His vast wealth, family connections, and unrivaled ability to navigate both noble circles and the underworld make him a formidable opponent. The most dangerous part of Calder's character is his ability to remain undetected, appearing as the epitome of loyalty while secretly working to undermine the kingdom from within. Dorian Vale, Calder's younger brother, is a shadowy figure in the Thieves Guild and the enforcer who does all of Calder's dirty work. Unlike Calder, who thrives in high society and manipulates from the shadows, Dorian embraces the violent and gritty underworld. While Calder is the mastermind, Dorian is the blade, always ready to handle problems with ruthless efficiency. The two brothers complement each other perfectly. Where Calder uses charm and intelligence, Dorian relies on brutality and fear. From a young age, Dorian was trained in combat, excelling in swordsmanship, stealth, and assassination. His loyalty to Calder is absolute, and he acts without question, no matter how dirty or bloody the job. Dorian is feared across the kingdom for his quick temper and deadliness in battle. If Calder wants someone eliminated or silenced, Dorian is the man for the job. Personality: cold, calculating, and unforgiving, Dorian is known for his loyalty to Calder and his enjoyment of violence. He's not one for long conversations or negotiations. He prefers to end conflicts with the point of a dagger. Dorian lacks his brother's political ambitions and instead finds satisfaction in executing orders and instilling fear in those who cross the guild. Skills: master assassin and swordsman, skilled in poisons and traps, silent and stealthy, able to infiltrate even the most secure locations, has a network of mercenaries and spies who report directly to him, ensuring the dirty work gets done. Role: Dorian serves as Calder's enforcer, ensuring that anyone who threatens the Thieves Guild meets a swift end. He handles the guild's operations, oversees the lower-ranking members, and enforces Calder's will without hesitation. While Calder stays clean, Dorian handles the bloodstains. Name: Venenum. Real name: Calder Vane. Alias: Venenum, Latin for poison, a fitting moniker for her deadly skills, and the secret she hides. Backstory: Calder Vane, known only as Venenum to the criminal underworld, is Calder Vane's half-sister, born out of wedlock to a mistress of the Vane family. The scandal of her birth was carefully hidden to protect the family's reputation, and she grew up in the shadows of her noble lineage, always resentful of her half-brother's legitimate claim to power and wealth. However, Calder saw potential in her, and rather than ignore her, he took her in as a secret ally. To the public, she does not exist, but in the criminal world, Venenum is feared and respected. Raised in secrecy, Venenum was trained in the arts of assassination and manipulation from a young age, learning to use her beauty and intellect to deadly effect. Calder taught her everything he knew about power, deception, and control. She became his most trusted enforcer and the keeper of the Thieves Guild's darkest secrets. Together, they ensured that their true connection remained hidden, with Venenum operating under her deadly alias. Personality: Venenum is as dangerous as she is beautiful. Cold and detached, she harbors a deep bitterness toward her place in the world and her hidden status. While Calder plays the long game with charm and manipulation, Venenum prefers more direct methods, often relishing the chaos she causes. She enjoys the thrill of control and the power that comes with knowing she can end anyone's life with a single drop of poison. Skills: master of poisons. As her name suggests, Venenum is an expert in poisons, able to concoct lethal and undetectable toxins. She can kill without leaving a trace. Deception and seduction. Venenum's charm is as potent as her poisons. She is skilled at getting close to her targets, gaining their trust before ending their lives. Combat and stealth. Trained in silent kills, she is as dangerous with a dagger as she is with a poison vial. She is stealthy and quick, making her a feared assassin. Spy network. Venenum controls a small group of loyal informants who gather critical information for her. Many are unaware that they serve her, as she operates through layers of secrecy. Role: Venenum is Calder's secret weapon. While Calder uses his charm and influence to navigate the upper echelons of society, Venenum handles the darker side of his operations. From assassinations to blackmail, she ensures the Thieves Guild's enemies disappear quietly. She operates under the radar, her true identity known to only a select few, always lurking in the shadows as a silent force of death and manipulation. Ronan turned to Jonty, his eyes serious. "Go back to your room," he ordered firmly. "No one can know that you're still alive. Stay out of sight. We need to control this situation, and we can't afford any slip-ups." Jonty hesitated for a moment, but nodded. He understood the need for secrecy. If the Thieves Guild learned that Maelis had failed, their entire plan would fall apart. Without another word, Jonty turned and made his way back to the tavern, slipping into the shadows as quietly as he could. Ronan, meanwhile, lifted Maelis onto his shoulder and took her to the dungeons. He moved swiftly through the dark streets, not wanting anyone to catch sight of her. Maelis struggled briefly but quickly realized the futility. Ronan was determined to get her off the streets as fast as possible. Once inside the cold stone walls of the dungeon, Ronan locked Maelis in a cell and called for the king. His tone left no room for delay, and soon King Alistair arrived, his face grim with concern. "We have her," Ronan said, standing tall, "but this is only the beginning. Maelis has revealed a far deeper plot, one that involves someone close to the throne." King Alistair's face hardened, but he stayed calm. "What do you propose?" Ronan stepped forward, his voice low. "We need to keep Jonty's death a secret for now. Maelis must send a message to the Thieves Guild claiming she succeeded in killing him. Once we do that, we'll see who reacts and how. It's the only way to flush out the true traitor." The king nodded, his expression grim. "Very well, let's set the trap.